All right, let's hope everything's. It's already broken, so that's nice. There we go.
Tinkercad.
Yes. So this is going to be our first board game discussion stream, I guess would be the best way to describe this.
I'm gonna take over for a second, John, just to lead us on in. I'm gonna lead us in here. So we have decided as Fused Relativity Group to do a board game stream using ideas that we have created to give board games ideas, and we're going to create games that we can then offer free to people, whether it be 3D printed if you have those capabilities, or using things that you have around your home that you can use to play the game. Everything should be fairly inexpensive and easy to obtain.
Hopefully. And hence the name of the stream, Free the Games. I kind of came up with that when we were talking about it, and I really, really liked it.
And I agree with that. Board games, I don't know if you've shopped board games recently, but they are rather expensive.
I have quite a few. In fact, one of the ones that I just bought that TikTok is bad for board games because there's quite a few channels that just show you how to play, random board games in like the minute to 3 minutes. And yeah, it's like hyper ad promotion. Like I bought I think it's called Happy Dinosaurs, or Happy Little Dinosaurs or something to that effect, recently. And this is kind of what, well, we've had this idea. Me and Chris have talked about making games for years now, Chris.
Yeah, something like that.
Happy Little Dinosaurs. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. I had to look at my Amazon orders. So yeah, we've been tinkering with the idea of making games for a long time. I've been tinkering with making games for quite a long time. In fact, I mentioned it on the podcast, but about 2 years ago, during Christmas, I made everyone a 3D printed game. And I know our niece really liked it. I don't know if you played it yourself.
We played it a few times. It was fun. Definitely something that you could get into, and it was ever changing, which is nice, to have a game that isn't playing the same way each time.
And here, I'm going to hide this while I change things. I'm going to bring it up on screen since I can. I just don't want to pull up and show all of my things on Tinkercad in here. But it was something that, me and Chris had talked about potentially monetizing and all of this other stuff, and it just turned out that it was like, like it's possible, but to get into the gaming market, it's like ridiculously prohibitive. Like you either have to have a really good, solid idea, or you have to have the money to do it. And these are the tiles for the game. And it's called Path to the Pyramid. This is probably going to be one of the first ones I do release, or we do release this month. But the part of the game was there's trays that you can print with this, and then you put these tiles face down in the tray and try and make your way to the center of to the pyramid.
Yeah, and each turn you flip over a tile, and it gives you a different direction that you can go.
Potentially, yeah. Like as you can see, there's some that have completely dead ends. There's some that you can only go one way.
The only thing that I didn't like was if someone gets on a run where they're just picking the right tiles, the game gets easy.
Well, and this is why I kind of want to do this sort of thing. This is a game where you would get it, you'd be it would be like, it's okay, but it has its flaws. Now, if you downloaded it, made it yourself, and you could tweak the stuff, that's a bit on the different side. I knew when I made it, it wasn't going to be 100%. Like, I don't have that fortitude of making sure everything plays out 100% of the time. It's just, I can come up with the ideas, I can come up with, a way to play it, but outside of that, it's So this is going to be one of the ones that we kind of release first. And actually, this is pretty simple because this is going to probably be the easiest one I have because I've already gotten all the tiles done. Everything's ready. The only thing that I don't have is the rules. And the only thing I don't like about this one is the fact that you cannot make it with household objects, potentially.
That was going to be my first point, was if you do not have a 3D printer, this is not a game that will be readily available to you. And we are trying in this endeavor to create games that you can play without having to have a 3D printer, or with minimal effort anyway.
Yeah. And I've got 2 of those already that I've made and play tested with the kids that just use... The first one just uses a pack of playing cards and a token. The second one uses some dice and a piece of paper. And I was using a puzzle box. So that's the set of these. Is right now, both games are we built just with the frame of mind of there being games that you can just use everyday objects to play with. And the first one's called Rush Hour. The second one is a play on Red Light, Green Light that I haven't exactly come up with a name yet. I'm probably going to change the Rush Hour one too. But it's at the point where I've made the we've got the rules, we've got the playing. It works. It's fun. For example, the Red Light, Green Light I played with my daughters this morning. The whole basis of the game is the person that would be normally doing the red light, green light has 2 sets of dice. They roll the dice. They have a number that that's when they'll call red light. And the 2 people that would be playing the runners roll a single dice each and decide if they want to move those spots or not. And if someone moves and the red light's not hit, they get to roll again and decide if they want to continue trying to run. If they hit that dice limit, they go back to start. Very simple concept. Nothing.
Well, you don't need a whole lot to make that game happen. It seems, there might be some, the rules would have to be written down so you could get a good idea of how the game is played, but you need dice and tokens.
Yeah. And potentially a piece of paper you can draw some grids on. But it's stuff like that where it's simple. It's not a game that you would be able to potentially monetize, and that's not what we're looking at. But it's something that is fun. It takes a couple minutes to set up, and you can play.
Well, and that's the beauty of the game, right? Is it doesn't take long to set up. You can play, and in our case, you don't have to spend a lot of money to make that happen. Especially like Path to the Pyramid, that one's 3D printed. If you have a 3D printer, it's not going to cost you anything to.
And
minimal filament.
I was going to say, I think the filament cost, even with the boxes that I made for it, was still under like $4.
Right. And so, you've got the cheap factor of it. It's something that you can make at your home with, a couple hours of printing, and boom, you got a game.
Sorry,
it seems John came up with this concept of video or board game creation stream, and I thought that's a good idea, because even if the games aren't your fancy, you're not spending anything on them. So
Yeah.
There's no harm in testing out a game, and maybe you take that game and run with it and make it better.
So, and this is kind of what sparked my idea, because when I was making Path to the Pyramid, I was looking at 3D printed games, and most of them were either Catan or Catan. There's like Battleship. I was looking for the name Battleship now. That's popped up, but those are all just replays of another Catan set. Like I was very hard pressed to find a tic-tac-toe. Like there was very few unique 3D printed games that were out there, and yes, there were some, but there wasn't. It wasn't like you could type in 3D printed game and you had a easy way to find and make a bunch of 3D printed games. That just wasn't a thing that happened.
And when it comes to board games, creativity is usually key. You got to be creative to make a board game, and not everybody's as inclined to do that. And so we're putting in our creative efforts in trying to make these games, and hopefully people will be able to use them. And if people make it better, that's great.
Yeah.
We're not monetizing this, so
we're looking for advice.
Yeah. And that's the best way to do it, right? Is you open it up to other people, let them have their input. Maybe a game is fine the way it is, but chances are someone's going to come up with something better. Or maybe not better, just different, something that maybe we didn't think about. But it's a novel concept. I like it.
And like right now, Chris already knows about this game, but when we were talking, one of the games I came up with was a game that I was going to call Glide Slope. Jeez, fuck. And the principle of it, or the premise behind it, was you had a board, and on this board there's pegs that go all the way across, and you have a plane that starts off at like this area right here, and you're playing +1s, or +1, +2, -1, -2, or neutral for yourself and against your opponent to try and get you to go off track. And I've further tweaked the rules, Chris. So I think if you were able to play both of the things on yourself, it could be beneficial.
Oh, I see. Maybe get you back on track.
Yeah, so you don't play something against the enemy.
So this one's fun. This one was one that I enjoyed the description of, because it's essentially you're trying to follow a glide slope, and it's a little hard to say, but your opponent is playing, I'm assuming, cards
or dice,
but they're using we'll say it's cards. They're going to play a card that's going to make you go off track. So then you have to counter that, and then it basically becomes a cat and mouse game to see who can finish the slope first.
Or who can finish it with the most points, I think would be the probably easier way to do it.
It's a fun concept nonetheless. I mean, any game, for me, any game that uses strategy is a lot of fun. I like the strategy games, and being able to plot things out while you're throwing cards down, that's my kind of game. So this one sounded fun to me.
Yeah, and that's what we're aiming for. Like, is it going to be good? Potentially. Do we care if it's not? No. Like, it's... There we go. Sorry, I'm kind of concentrating as I'm doing this as well. I want it to... There we go. Wanted to make sure I got it accurate. Now, the nice thing about Tinkercad is that you can do that, and it will duplicate a whole bunch of times.
Man, the one show Kirk's not on here, and he would actually be able to see Tinkercad.
I know that's triggering my OCD a little bit, Chris. I'll have to tweak with it in a little bit, but that's okay. I'm gonna get frustrated trying to do this because having to click on each one of these separately and not click the red box is... But
something you should have done before the podcast.
No, I mean the whole point of this was to show, this is the, like, a lot of people would not show you the creation of the game or how they created the game.
Right.
And that's kind of why we wanted to do this, is just to, please stop. Is to show the process and show how easy it can be to create a game. Not necessarily how easy it'll be to make it, but I'm going to say I want to save, but I can't. So I'm going to try and nope.
Well, and the beautiful thing about the process is you get a even better glimpse into the game itself, and maybe not necessarily how it's played, but seeing it from construction to product, you get a better understanding of what your thought process is.
Yes. Okay, now that should... I'm going to be so upset if it's not level at the bottom. I know it's not going to be because it's an even number, but that looks pretty good. And then just come in here. Take this.
And so with this one, you would just have like a peg, right? That you would run through, kind of like Battleship. You would just have a peg.
Yeah. The thing with this would be that, because initially we were talking about, or I was thinking, how am I going to do the glide slope? You know, how would you make it to where you can do the slope? The easiest way I thought of would be taking a string and running it in between all of these to show your slope.
Which would mean you could change the glide slope every time you play.
Yeah, which would give some randomization to it. It would probably not hurt. Well, now that I've made this, I can... There was a way that I wanted to do it where you could slide stuff in between this and the back. That would obviously make things a lot more complicated to print, because, like, if I took this right now and let's just export the whole thing. I'm going to turn this off because it's going to show all of my files. We're going to export it. Oh, I didn't want to export that. So I'm going to pull up, while this is doing this, I'm going to pull up process slicer.
I was going to say, you're going to put it in the slicer to see what the time is on the... Yep.
Except I accidentally hit object, so it's taking its sweet time. Plus, there's like 50,000 freaking circles there. So while this is doing that, do you want to talk about yours?
Yeah. So I came up with a game, and it's super simple. Super simple game. You want to show the other one first, John?
I can. Jesus, I've screwed everything up. There we go.
So this game, I don't have a name for it yet. I was thinking about it, and I just hadn't come up with a good enough name yet, so I'm not going to put one on there. But essentially, John, you're familiar with the game War.
Yes.
You know, the old card game where you see who's got the higher card.
Yes.
Okay, so it's modeled off of that. And as you can see, I made my own cards today. And all these cards were made today, and they were all made using cardstock. It's like, I don't know, 100-pound cardstock. pretty standard stuff. It's about 25 cents a sheet, and I could get 9 on a sheet. So I think I spent $1 to buy the cardstock. And you don't have to use cardstock. You could just print it out on regular printer paper and glue it to a card if that's what you wanted to do. Or you could just use it as a printer paper. It's kind of all the same. But for the presentation, I wanted to put it on some cardstock. And so every card you can see has an attack value and a defense value. So the way that this particular game is played is just like War, the way it's randomized. So you have, right now I have 30 cards. There's not 30 cards on here, but this was just to give you the idea. So you have 30 cards, and you shuffle them up, and you deal the cards like a game of War. You would just back and forth all 30 cards, so there's 15 on each. And then each player is going to flip over their first card. So now you can go back to the other one, John. There we go. So each player, without looking at, you're not looking at your deck, right? You're just randomly flipping your first card. And so as you can see, you have dog and lion. Well, the lion's attack is 25 and its defense is 20. The dog's attack is 15 and defense is 10. So you're playing in this game, you're playing attack and defense on each card. Does that make sense, John?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and it's
based off...
Oh, no, keep going.
Ahead.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, based off of this, you can see that the lion would essentially beat the dog. The dog doesn't take down the lion, and it does not have enough defense against the lion. So that dog goes off of the tape, off of the playing surface, off to the side, into the discard, into the player's pile that will be used later. So it's kind of like a reserve. It's almost like a graveyard, but it's not. And then, so the lion then stays on the table until a card gets flipped that can beat the lion.
Okay.
And so what you're doing is like how in War you just keep the cards in a pile next to you. And then once all the cards have been used, you reshuffle your new pile and keep going. It's the same concept.
See, and this is exactly why I wanted to have this discussion, because on our own we both have ideas, and sometimes they can be helped with bouncing off. Like, my first thought when you started describing this was, remember how the way we used to play War? Because we kind of modified it. I don't know if it was me or if it was Tom or someone modified it. But when we played War, and this could have been like a game we played with the Pokemon cards too, but there would be you had your win pile and you had your loss pile. So if if the lion beat the lion would go in the win pile, the dog would go in the loss pile.
Right.
And the loss pile is just discarded. The win pile stays around. And then it's kind of like the battle of the strongest. So after you go through your main deck and all your cards are in win or loss, then you take your win stuff, shuffle it up, and then go again until there is one that is won.
And I mean, so there you go. You got two different variations of this game already, right? And
yeah,
this is just the way that I see it. And I did test this game, and there were a few little tinkerings that need to be done, mostly because you have to be a little more precise with your attack defense numbers, because there was a lot of points where there was ties. like neither would beat the other, and so
and
you have to figure out from there.
I would think a tie would both go discard.
So my initial thought was, with a tie, you leave those cards on the table and go to the next card. So you would battle the next battle separately, and then winner takes all, essentially.
Yeah, sorry. Just tried to drown myself with my water bottle.
So essentially, I mean, I think that there's something here just because it's now I used all these, adorable animals to make my cards, but my goal would be to have our own art put on them. I was
just going to say, I think I have an artist that could do this for us very cheaply, Not saying child labor laws, but...
and of course, we're talking about this would be just for us, and we would be able to release any of those expansions that we would do with the art for free. But I would like to do it in our own art. I just figured for what I was doing, the animals that I made were good enough, and they turned out actually pretty good.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the only thing I'm going to bring back up the other image. The only qualm I had was you can obviously tell there is a variety of different art styles, and that's the only thing that drew my attention right away.
Well, yes, but this is also commercially free clip art, so
yeah, I know.
But yes, we would have. I would think having it all done in one art, and maybe instead of doing cute forest creatures, you could have ogres and more of a magic style. Sentiment, just something a little more fun. I mean, this was fun to me, but
I will have to say, I'm only going to plug this because I discovered it. I think it was last weekend, and me and the kids have been playing it crazy. So on Steam, there is a free-to-play game called Super Auto Pets. I suggest you download it and play it because it is. I am not saying it's your card game because it's obviously a lot more complex because it's a video game. But it's very reminiscent, and I think your card game could work. Just the only reason I would suggest downloading it and trying it out is because you might get some inspiration.
Okay, yeah, I mean I don't have a problem with that because this is just something I came up with that I wanted a simple card game that you could play. And I like the idea of it being randomly different every single time. Because you're dealing out the cards from one main deck, not your own decks that you've pre-built.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So the main deck is standardized, right? Everything is already pre-made for the standard deck. And then so everybody plays from that deck, and those are the cards you get to choose from. You're not adding your own cards. Well, I guess you could if you wanted to when you make your own, but for what my purpose is these cards that you see are the cards you play with. So you deal those cards out, and okay, so the player one gets the lion, the gorilla, and the bear all in one hand. Well, you won. I'm sorry. That sucks.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's the one thing that would need to be potentially rebalanced would be if someone ended up with everything, because from the obviously you said these weren't all the cards, but
yeah, and I think the point values would be once again what I would have to work on.
Yeah, because
assigning point values that would be a little more cohesive. Because I just kind of look. I'm dead serious. I did all of these cards today, so are. I didn't put a lot of thought into what the point values were. I just kind of gave them arbitrary point values for emphasis.
Yeah.
But I mean, we played it, and I'll be honest, my wife beat me on the first game. So I lost.
Yeah, it's just... Yeah, I mean, my only thing would be you have a lot of cards that are... Okay, I was going to say, I can see the bear. I was looking for... Like, it would just need to be fine-tuned to where even if one side had... Like, the one thing I'm noticing is you don't have a defense 30.
Correct. Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, don't try not to focus too much on the defense, because like the point values, because I just don't have them fine-tuned yet.
Yeah.
But we will, eventually I will get there to where everything will be a little more cohesive. But, like the beetle or the mouse, attack 5, defense 1, he's not taken out very much, but he's fodder anyway. It's more to keep the lower level guys, or to keep the game going.
Yeah.
It's to give you a little more time per hand, so that you're not just playing for 5 minutes and then you're done. It's a little more fun to have you want to have a little time with it.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense. Like I said, this is the whole point of this, is so that we can discuss the games, and we can discuss it in a public forum, so that if there's any other one that has any ideas that says, hey, what about this? We can do it. Because if we just sit there and talk back and forth, we're two 30-plus-year-olds that have known each other, forever. So a lot of our ideas are very similar, because we grew up in the same house. So
right. Playing these games. Well,
yeah.
Playing our games anyway.
Yeah. And I always made games. That was, like I mentioned in the podcast, I think. But one of the earliest things I can remember was always looking forward to getting the newspaper with the car ads. The car ads were absolutely my favorite, because I could cut them out, and with the poster board, almost every week that I could, I made a racing game with cars. Because it was a free thing. I think it was just dice and cut out cards, or cut out cars.
Right, which is a free way to make a game, and realistically, this game, as I was saying, was, it cost me 25 cents 5 times $1.20. Was it? I bought 5 sheets, so $1.25 is what I paid to make this game. Now, of course, you've got printer ink. That's, you'd be a little more expensive, but you could theoretically just draw your art on these cards if you were ambitious enough, and then it would be.
And for that sake, you could also use index cards.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of index cards.
Yeah, that's what my mind first goes to. Like, if you want cheap cards, index cards. There's no way cheaper. In fact, I was going to say, yeah, I have a whole stack here. 200 index cards ruled, so one side has markings, the other side doesn't. And as Nymphu brings up, yeah, we had so many games around Pogs growing up. It was...
And it's funny, the Pogs game, because Pogs was, I remember that game, and I remember that game being fun as a kid. So, it doesn't always have to be...
Not the official Pogs game, mind you. The official Pogs game was,
Oh, that's a good point. We had our own game that we made using Pogs.
Yeah.
That was the... we did it to... Because Pogs got boring after a while, so then you want to switch it up. So we had our own game that we made using Pogs that was fun. And we didn't, it didn't cost us anything because we already had the Pogs. It was just a variation of a way to make things more fun.
Same with, I'm almost certain it was Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Pokemon cards, and God, even as an adult, I think I tried to make Magic the Gathering cards work for my kids. But because there's already the variety. You already have spell cards and trap cards. It's already all there. You just have to have a way to justify the ruling around it and the rules around it, which is what we want to do. And that's kind of the point. And I made a TikTok today about question relativity, or I should say the question relativity I made today. I don't know if you watched it, Chris, but it was about, the morality of using an old game. Because like I said, the game I found, in fact, I can even bring it up here because we're on a podcast and I can do, or not on a podcast. It's a talk show, I guess. I don't know.
I could do technological stuff on a talk show. It's a pod show, John. That's what I'm calling it. It's a pod show.
I was looking for an image. Why is images? But the question was, this game. Yeah, this will work. Take these away. So this game right here, Duel, it was a little game with dice. And you had 2 rows on each side, and the dice would move equal to the number that was on top when you started moving the dice. And it's like, and if you can see down here, this right now is $35. And it's out of stock, and that's only because it was printed in the 70s and is, as far as I can tell, hasn't been printed since. And that brings up the morality of, is it legal to copy this game? And, like, if I wanted to, could I make this, put it out as a 3D printed game? As we saw earlier, like right here, there's Catan, Battleship, all of that. It's all already out. Like, if Hasbro had a issue with this, they would have already done something. Well,
I don't think they can if you're not selling it. If there's no.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like, if I said, I'm not going to sell it, that they really can't do anything. But as I brought up in the question, like, abandonware is a thing. Like, I don't know if you remember this, Chris, but back when we were growing up, I remember going to a computer store, and there used to just be like racks and racks and racks of shareware computer games. And like most of those games are probably, there's no record of them anymore. This was before the internet. This was before any of that. So if someone found a floppy disk of that and said, "Hey, I found this old game," most of the time the publisher or whoever made it is long since gone. The trademarks, everything's just up in the air because it was abandoned. Because it's 30 years old and it ran on hardware that was, 40 years old.
Right.
So is there a concept like that applies to games? Because I was thinking about this game, and I do a lot of thinking when I'm driving to and from work. And I thought, there is definitely ways I could make it better. Like if you had a central board, but you also had, because the dice can move in any direction, could you have slots and 3D print add-ons so you could have 4 players play? Could you 3D print special dice that aren't, if you think about a dice, I have to do some quick calculator math. Let me ask you this, Chris. How much does a dice add up to?
Say that again?
So if you took all the numbers on the face of a dice, how much would it add up to?
3, 7, 3, 6, 10. 2, 6, 10, 15, 21.
Yeah. So what if you had dice that you said, as long as it equals 21, the dice is legal. So it could be, 7, 3, 6, 4, and 1. Because in this game of Duel, you had to have the number specifically correct to land on a dice to capture it. So it's like, there's so many things that could be done nowadays that weren't exactly, available back then. And that's kind of my concept of, like, I want to take this game, I want to re-envision it, but I want to make it, better. Am I legally allowed to do this? Absolutely. I could potentially even sell it. because I've changed the nature of the game so much that it is definitely not a copy of the original.
Yeah, I don't know that it is. If it was still a game that was in production, then maybe I could see it being ethically wrong. But
well, and that's
if you're saying the game hasn't been made since the 70s, I think you're fine. If you make a game that people are like, "Hey, this is fun," there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and that's kind of my point. Is that's what I want to do. Is like, there's so many ideas and so many ideas from our childhood that we could turn into games, or put out there. It's just that's the thing, is the game market is so saturated and it's so expensive that it's like, yeah.
Well, and the last real game that I got into was Cards Against Humanity. So
that was years ago too.
I know, but I look at the price of games and I'm just like, man. I mean, I bought Delilah Shoots and Ladders, and that game was like $8.
Yeah.
There's nothing to it. It's a board.
Yep.
So, I don't generally buy games too much because they're incredibly expensive. But the other game that I was going to bring up, just thinking about it when you were talking about re-envisioning an old game, did you ever play the game? It goes by multiple names, but I know it as Clackers.
I don't think. I mean, I'm assuming if I,
So essentially, you have 1 through 10 numbers, or 0 through 9.
Okay.
On the tie on a
okay.
rack, and you roll 2 dice, and whatever they come up to, you have to you push down the number.
So kind of like reverse kind of like a Yahtzee in a way.
So there's 2 lines of numbers, but like if you got, let's say you rolled 9, 5, and 4. So you could either drop 9 down or you could drop 5 and 4. So you could drop either the 2 numbers or you could drop just the 1, because it's harder to roll, so the strategy goes into, would you rather keep your low numbers or your high numbers? Like if you got a 1 and a 6, you could throw down 7, or you could throw down 1 and 6. And the question just then becomes like, do you want to leave yourself with a 1? And the whole point is to get the lowest score.
So hold on. So kind of like this.
Exactly like that. Yes.
So I found one that's 4-player.
Four-player?
Hold on. Yeah, let me. What did I type in?
This game just happened. We actually came across this one at it was at a tap house, beer garden. They had it sitting there, and we started playing, and it turned out it was super fun because it's a little bit of strategy. It's fast paced, and everybody just took their turn to see who got the lowest number. If you run out of combinations, like if you have a 1 and a 6 and you've already dropped the 1 and the 7, then you're done. You're stuck with the tiles that you still have up there. And so
Gotcha.
the whole goal is to get the lowest score possible.
Hold on, I'm trying to type in. Oh, it's Shut the Box is what it was going for on this.
Yeah, it goes under multiple names for sure. And so this just looks like, rather than having to switch the box to different people, everybody can just go all at once. Yeah.
But if you look at that, that would be potentially easy to pick up, easy to print.
Correct.
And potentially, you could even switch it up and change it up and make different rules.
Well, because like we have one that we bought just because we found it, where it's actually, they called it like Super Shut the Box, or anyway, it had 2 rows.
Okay.
Instead of 1 row of numbers, it had 2 rows of numbers.
Okay.
And that made it a little more difficult because now you're playing off of 2 different sets.
Yeah.
But you can see, okay, so it is 1 through 10. I couldn't, off the top of my head, remember. But so, like, if you rolled 2 5s, you could either, do like 4, 3, 7, or you could do 10, or, you have to make that number however you want to.
Yeah.
But if you get rid of your 1 and your 3, now you're in trouble. Because, what if you get a 4? It's a strategy game, but it's fun.
Yeah, let's see. Let's go to Thingiverse. I'm just curious. We're going to look for Shut the Box. Probably not going to come up with anything. No. Didn't think so.
So yes, theoretically that could be something that we could offer people if we designed it.
Well, and that's, yeah. So,
and all you need is basically a simple inside box with a ledge to stack tiles on.
Yeah.
And the tiles wouldn't have to be thick, so you're probably talking 5-6 hour print at tops.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of print, I don't want to interrupt you. I did the time on this one. 7 hours and 14 minutes.
That's actually not bad for as many circles as there are.
Well, that's the thing is, this is also probably twice the amount of eggs that I was thinking. Because when I envisioned this game, because you would be taking, every turn you would go across 1. And then you would just go up and down depending on what you got scored. And I was thinking, something like 21 pegs would probably be ideal. Because, the 21 turns. This is 32.
When I was thinking about writing the rules, because I was like, okay, well, I've got a game. Now I got to write some rules so that we have rules to the game. I was like, man, that's going to be the hardest part, is writing down all the rules.
Yeah, that's what always gets me, too.
And I think my favorite part of this game, like going back to my card game, because it's, of course, mine and I can talk about it, but I always like the idea that somebody somewhere could come up with like how on video games and board games, there's always that one person who comes up with some weird loophole, crazy glitch that breaks the game.
Yeah.
I'd like to see what that is, Now, you can't just make your own card and have it, let's say, attack 100, defense 100, and there's nothing that's that powerful. That's no fun. You're just going to win every time. But,
yeah,
depending on how you write the rules, there's always room for creativity. I like that.
Exactly. And this is just episode 1. So, like, more than likely, there will be a website for this once we do get going. The printed stuff is going to be on Thingiverse. Sorry, I'm not trying to... I'm trying to describe how we're going to get this out there. Because, this was just kind of an opening thing. And I don't think either of us realized we were going to be talking for almost an hour.
Well, it was... We came in with game ideas just because that's what we're doing here, and we wanted to pitch some stuff just because, people like to see what it is that you're talking about, and so we had some content and some stuff to look at, so it makes sense.
Yeah, so we'll have a website that'll have these. The printed stuff is going to be on Thingiverse. That'll include the non-printed files. I'm going to do TikToks and YouTube videos on it. At least to start, they're going to be on the Fused Relativity channel. they will likely migrate to like a fused relativity gaming channel or games channel, board games channel.
Yeah, and we don't know, how well this will take. I mean, people might not care about it, or they might think it's, awesome. It's hard to say at this point because we haven't done it yet.
Yeah, so this will be a fun endeavor all around, I think.
Oh, yeah. No, and I enjoyed making this game. Like I said, once I got the idea, I put the cards, I started building the cards, and I started having fun with it. And then as I played it, I said, okay, it's got some merit to it. And I think that's what other people might run into as well, is having the ability to run into that kind of creative enjoyment.
Yes. But I'm looking forward to this. I think we're probably going to go full. We're definitely going to have it started for the beginning of next year.
Yeah, right. if we can get some out by Christmas time, maybe just a little stocking stuffer gift that you could potentially make and say that it's your own and it's a game. Well, that could be fun too.
Oh, and
we'll have to see how much progress we can make by then.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing I wanted to do was we're going to have it. That's why I wanted to have at least 2 of them out by Christmas, with potentially Path to the Pyramid as well. And then hopefully, if all goes well, we're going to have a new free game every week for the year of 2022. Hopefully.
Yeah. I'll have to get some ideas going, because this one, I'm surprised I made it as far as I did. I'm not as creative as you are, so I have to work twice as hard.
Yeah.
So, but the good news is I got a lot of time on my hands during the day, so at least I have a lot of time to be in my own brain, so I can come up with some stuff.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I started that challenge of making a board game way back when. And now we're just kind of we've converted it from competing against each other, which we might still do, because I still think that has some merit behind it. To now we're doing this.
Well, I think, John, that's a pretty good start. Pretty good first episode. We don't need to go crazy long into it and keep rambling about the same things over and over again. So you are putting this on TikTok and YouTube?
This will not go on TikTok. They do not currently accept hour-long videos.
Are you gonna cut out any clips for TikTok?
Probably not. I might. I'll have to. This is probably going to go up on our main Fused Relativity YouTube channel on Tuesday.
Well, my whole point was to say, anybody who sees this, if it's on YouTube, please leave us some comments and let us know what you
give
think.
Us your thoughts.
We always like to see the comments and see who's got some creative criticisms for us. And TikTok, if it doesn't happen, that's cool too, But yeah, leave your comments. Let us know if you like something. Give us a holler, and we can figure out a way to get you what we need so that you can make it yourself. And good first episode, John. I'm glad we had stuff to at least display for the day.
I have a feeling, and unfortunately, these are probably not going to be too intense on the imagery. It's more going to be discussions, and this chat may move to, who knows, this chat may move to TikTok. It just kind of depends on how things go, but it'll always be available on our YouTube channel after the fact.
Absolutely, just like all our other content that we do here on Twitch. So, yes. Well, I think that with that, we'll wrap her on up. I'm going to work on my game and see if I can hammer out some of the details, maybe start writing these instructions up. And we'll move on next week or whenever we do our next show and show some progress.
I'm going to probably print one of these pegboards to see how massive it is and probably scale it back, because this was just kind of a test, and I didn't think it would be, this big. Cost $3, but Yeah. Well, this is all going to be tweaked.
Everything needs to be and should be.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll have some more stuff for next week. But we do have our podcast on Friday. It may be a little bit later than normal, and then Space
Engineers on Saturday. We've been enjoying that a lot. So,
yep.
Everybody, come and check us out.
But all right. Well, until next time.
Enjoy your week.
Yeah, I was gonna say enjoy your week and happy gaming.